This is a real D&H customer store. Check them out. Professionally wildlife photographers and D&H customers for 30 years.
We're going to call this meeting to order. It's 5 o'clock. I see we have a quorum. Can we get an approval for this agenda, please? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands. Okay. We're going to receive as information iDream League Startup Charter School application.
Good evening, Superintendent Moore, Board President Wells, and members of the Montgomery County Board of Education. I am Angela Lane, the Executive Director for iDream Big Academy Charter School. Tonight we have presented our application for your consideration for approval. iDream Big Academy Charter has submitted an application based upon our 5 pillars of belief, in an effort to work with the Montgomery County school system to help combat a systemic cycle of economic decline, as well as efforts to increase low education, as well as efforts to increase education attainment. Our goal is to provide students with innovative approaches to learning, decrease the identified achievement gap among subgroups, and demonstrate a measurable increase in the satisfaction level of our parents and our community. Our school is based on 5 pillars: aspiration, affirmation, accountability, achievement, and activation. With affirmation, iDream Big, we truly believe that each student who applies or comes to our doors, each student within the Montgomery school system, they are all innate with natural gifts and talents. Our goal is to help foster those talents, to help students believe in their talents and their abilities. Affirmation, give them the tools to equip them to be successful. Help to instill in them the belief that whatever their goal, their dream is, it can be achievable. Accountability, helping them to understand the decisions that they make in order for them to be accountable not only for their academic progress, but as well as their behavior. Our education design is designed to where our students are paired with a mentor every morning. So we identify our students' needs every single day and work with them to be prepared for the education and the instruction day that lies ahead of them. Achievement, focusing not only on the academic core, but on opportunities to where our students, once they graduate, Not only do we provide them with a diploma, but every student is equipped with the tools, the certifications, so that once they walk across our stage, not only do we hand them a diploma, but we hand them the skills and the tools to go out immediately into the workforce and secure jobs that are in high demand and will allow them to provide for their families as well as their communities. We have partnered with Amazon to be the only school within the River region as well as Alabama to offer cloud computing programming. That means any student who comes to iDream Academy will have the essential schools will be able to receive AWS certifications, which allows them to immediately upon turning 18 to apply for jobs with Amazon. The opportunity
for students to receive high-income jobs immediately upon graduation is a game changer for not only them, their families, but also their community. And our last pillar, activation. We want to prepare our students to be civic-minded so that once they graduate, they have the skills to obtain jobs, but they also understand the responsibility to go back into their communities and help motivate and be responsible peers for the younger students there, as well as provide support and resources to help build their communities.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Lucretia Prince. I am a part of the planning team, and I want to speak to you for just a moment about the significance of the name I Dream Big. Dreaming big means having the mental freedom to think about what you really want out of life and forget all of the reasons why you can't make it a reality. It means having high standards for your life and setting the bar high. Our name is a reminder to students as well as adults that we have the freedom to dream big, that it does not matter what side of the tracks that they came from. If they can believe it, then they can achieve it. When they say, "What school do you go to?" we want that to be a reminder and an indicator to them that they can be whatever they want to be.
Thank you. I know we had 10 minutes to speak to you all. Again, thank you for allowing us the opportunity.
Are there any questions at this time from board members?
Thank you. Madam Chair, I have some questions basically from the constituents. One has to do with the public forum that the process says should be conducted. I understand that there was a forum on January 2. Yes. How was that announced? Where was it announced? What kind of attendance did you have? What kind of feedback did you get? Dr. Coleman, we held the community event on January 2nd. Prior to that event, we held an interview conducted at Flatline Church at Chisholm. That interview was also posted on social media. We also participated and passed out information regarding the charter in November, where we met one-on-one with over 100 cars who came through the parking lot of the Flatline Church. During that time, we passed out pamphlets and we answered questions directly pertaining to the school with parents. During the community event, we also conducted a Facebook Live where we spoke about the school and we'll address any questions that came across through the media format at that time as well. We also created flyers. We passed out more than 200 in the communities in Flatline. We spent 3 days canvassing neighborhoods and business distributing those flyers as well.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did I hear you say you did flyers in the communities?
Yes, ma'am, we did. And the timeline for the January 2nd community, we adhered to what was instructed to us that once we submitted the application, so between December and January to conduct the community event. But yes, ma'am, we did distribute flyers as well.
Right. Yes, I'm familiar with that step. I was just concerned about the public notice and conversations prior to this point. I don't want to take up all the time asking questions, but a procedural question. Is tonight a night that we are looking at just accepting an application, or is tonight a night that we would make an approval or acceptance for a school?
I think that tonight would be the night that we would vote for a charter or not.
Okay.
Okay, for clarity, as an authorizer, the staff will look at and has looked at and reviewed the application and had several interviews with the applicants. So as an authorizer, we have to take the step of either recommending approval or denial to the board. Then the board votes yay or nay on whatever the recommendation happens to be. And then once that happens, some other things under the law will kick in. But right now for tonight, yes, you will be asked to approve or deny based upon my recommendation.
I had one quick question about the agenda item. On here it says about the school application, and under in my mind, I was thinking that it was just to accept the application and you would all go back to draw up a contract.
You only will draw up a contract if it's approved.
If the application is approved?
Yes.
So tonight, are we approving the application so you can go back and draw up the contract?
You will be given a recommendation at a point, which will be either to approve or deny the application. So as an authorizer, if they apply, then we have to take it and go through the hoops, jump through the hoops dictated by the law. And then we have to say to you as a board, we recommend or we deny this particular application. And you get to vote on it based on what you read, based on your questions, and then based on whatever my recommendation happens to be at the time.
So I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear.
Okay.
So tonight, we're voting on the application then, to approve or deny the application?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then there'll be another step to this when it comes to the contract at a later date?
If
If
you,
it's approved?
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
If it's approved?
right,
Okay.
right.
I have a question that I would like to ask. I was reviewing, can you hear me? Okay. I was reviewing the grading structure, and according to your grading structure, there are A, B, C, and I. There's not a D. So anything after a C or 69 and below is an incomplete. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So the grading structure is designed under the ideal of the power of I, of a no-fail policy. So in other words, for our students, we understand that some students take longer and need more time to master a course or understand a subject. So at the end of that time period, whether it's a 9 weeks, if that student is still at a 55, instead of giving them an F to say you have failed this course and you failed and you have to retake it, we give them an incomplete and say, let's put in things to continue working with you until you're able to move up to a 70, which we identify as having mastered that course.
So you're saying at that time they're held?
They have not failed, they just continue with the course. So we do not end the course with you failed. It's just at that point, you have not mastered that course. So we will continue working with that student, either doing our gap weeks into the summer in order to get that student to the point to where he has passed, has mastered that course. If a student transfers away from our school during the time to where his score is below a 70, that numerical grade will be on the transcript. But as long as they're with us, we will continue working with them until they pull their grade up to a 70.
Okay, but still, in your school, an I, they will be held where they are until they achieve 70 or above.
The way that our school is designed through a looping process is that our students move once they've passed a course. So a student over a 9-month period, a student may complete a course within 4 months, whereas another student will complete a course in 9 months, or it may take a student 10 months. So we don't ever say that that student has failed. That student just needs more time. Once that student has completed that course, if it takes 12 months, then they'll immediately move on to the next course. But they're still staying with their looping, with their grade level, with their peers.
So basically, they are held at that level, which in traditional school would be considered failure.
No, ma'am. They're not failed. They're not. They stay with the same teacher through a looping process. So we may have a class that has, quote, 6th or 7th grade students in it, depending on what they're working on or what they're working toward. So you may have a student who started that first year as a 6th grade student. They did not complete and master their course. So we will work with that student until they complete and have mastered. They may go into a month into the 7th grade, but we don't identify it as failure because we don't want to stigmatize our students that you failed the course and you have to repeat it, but assuring that our students are actually mastering the content so we don't get to 9th or 10th grade and realize that our students are having difficulties with mastering with reading or other math standards. So it's how do we ensure that our kids are actually getting the content in the time frame that they can?
I don't want to be the only one talking, but I'm going to tell you from what I'm reading, well, 2 things I'd like to say before I get into more questions. When I look at your board of directors, your leadership team, your partners, your curriculum, the design, the idea is beautiful. If I were writing a program for Montgomery City Schools, I might would use a lot of this content. There's a lot here that can be used. As a matter of fact, I have been asking for it over the past, at least the past year. I've been trying to find out how we could get this back for our kids. Having said that, I have a serious concern about us taking resources from Montgomery Public Schools to do something that could be done with Montgomery Public Schools. So I'd like to know if anyone on this team has requested an audience with this superintendent and her staff to make these suggestions and you were denied that opportunity.
No one from our team. Part of the process when we submit the charter was to abide by the guidelines of the charter, which was to submit the application to the superintendent prior to making any additional contact. I completely understand, I hear you as far as taking resources from the community. That is not our intent, nor is there our goal. Our funding, in our funding formula, we do not receive, we do not allocate, and we have not budgeted any local funding into our program. So that's your meal tax, your ad valorem tax. We have not put any of that into our budget, nor is any of that included in our finances. We are funded through federal and state allocations, as well as aggressively pursuing additional grants. We're not receiving any local funding. Our goal is not to work against the Montgomery County school system, but to work alongside them, to work in partnership with them. When you look at the numbers of these students in one particular high school, from the students who came as a 9th grade, more than 200 of those students have left that school between their 9th and 11th grade year. The students who we are recruiting, just our cohort number in itself, will not be able to take in the number of students that Montgomery is losing. Our goal is to help keep the students within the city of Montgomery, to help, to work alongside Montgomery, to help grow. Our goal is that as we grow in academics, we can partner and model with other school systems. You mentioned that a lot of the strategies that we have in our application are some that you have proposed. Our goal is that we can serve as a model and help collaborate and work with the schools who are in this system to where we can all implement these strategies together.
I have a question concerning your finances. Are you planning on, if you would receive the grant, when will you open? 2021, 2022?
The fall of 2022.
The fall of 2022. As I was looking at your grants, I see that you have applied for finance for the funding. How much funding do you actually have? I know you've put in applications, but how many of those applications have been approved so that you would have the funding in order to achieve your goals?
On hand, as of this moment, we have a little under $100,000. We've used that money for earnest money to secure a building. We have also have an agreement with an investor that is willing to and able to invest during our planning year $1.5 million to help us during our planning year if necessary.
Has that been approved and signed?
Yes, a letter with that information was a part of our application.
So I have just a quick question. Looking over the biographical information on the startup team and the potential leaders of this academy, there's quite a bit of ties to Pike Road. Has it ever been considered to take the idea of I Dream Big to Pike Road area as a startup?
I just wanted to make sure I heard, can you repeat your question? Because I was listening to Dr. Nettles as well.
Yes, looking at the startup committee and those that would potentially lead the academy, there's ties to the Pike Road community. So has there been any introduction or talk about introducing this idea to the Pike Road community versus the Montgomery community?
In 2015, when the Pike Road school system opened, it was unfortunately as a result of parents leaving the Montgomery school system and wanted to start their own system. Some of the ideals, some of the education approaches that are used in the Pike Road system are part of our application, but that's because those are best practices. So the ideal of project-based learning where students learn by doing, that's a research-based practice that we know across all systems, all states works. Our ideal to submit an application to Montgomery was based on the evidence that we saw from the community and the target that we were looking at. Our goal, as we stated before, our goal is that when we look at the number of students who are leaving Montgomery, how do we keep those students here? How do we keep those students within Montgomery City? And when we look at students who are in the areas that we're looking at, these middle schools that those students are targeted to, over the last 3 years, 80% of those students have left not being proficient in reading, math, or science. Our goal is to help that. Our goal is to help those parents by providing them with an additional option that they can't leave to go to a private school. They can't leave to move to Pike Road. They can't leave and move to our school systems in the north. They can't move to Auburn. So how do we keep our students here? How do we keep our families here in Montgomery? And we can't continue to give them the only option of going into a school where for the last 3 to 4 years, the trend has been only 20% proficient. So how do we provide another option for those families while simultaneously working with those schools in order to increase their performance as well?
If I can piggyback on that, when I was looking at the leadership team, I think it was the CSFO whose name was redacted. And I'm just interested in why, if that person is a person who is in place, because I thought I had seen some biographical information on the individual, but no name. Why is that?
He's not part of our team. He was part of our planning team to help us go through the finance because he has worked in Alabama school systems. His name was removed because he currently works in a school system, and we didn't want to jeopardize, and he works in a school system not within the Montgomery County area or region. But he was able to provide us with the expertise of going through budgets and understanding bonds and how allocations work. And so we included him as part of the planning process because he did help us to understand how all the different revenues work. But we removed his name because he is currently, and he intends to remain with the system that he's at, but he's currently working with another school system.
I do have a question, several questions actually. So I looked at your targeted demographics, and I'm going to echo something one of my board members stated. I understand now, I got a gist of how you derived to your demographics, but were other school districts in the Tri-County area also considered in addition to Montgomery?
For us to bring a charter school
Yes.
here, our goal, we wanted to bring it to Montgomery again as an option for our parents, as a way to collaborate and work with the current Montgomery system. I have 4 students. I have 4 kids. 2 of my kids were graduates of the Montgomery school system. My oldest graduated from Lee High School. My youngest was my second graduated from Park Crossing. My younger 2 attended Georgia Washington and Halcyon. I was a parent for the Montgomery system before I'm standing before you and ask to bring a charter. My goal was to take my education experience, take the educational experience of our team, that we know what best practices can work and what it can look like when all of those practices are brought together, to say how can we bring that, how can we introduce that in order to serve as a collaborative partner with the Montgomery school system, as well as a model to show this is how our middle schools can work in order to increase from 20% proficiency to 80.
My second question is dealing with the chronic absenteeism. I noticed that it was stated in your report, or your application, excuse me. So given that MPS, as it stated, has had challenges with chronic absenteeism, what about your chart? Could you explain to us about what your charter will do to ensure that chronic absenteeism will improve under your leadership?
As we stated in our application, the national average for chronic attendance is around 5%. In the schools that we've looked at in Montgomery, some of those chronic absenteeism range from 15%, some close to 20%, and some actually exceeded 25%. The first thing we have to do is get our kids to where they are actually in school. And a lot of that deals with social emotional aspects, but also where school has to become meaningful for our kids. So the things that we put in place in our program is one, addressing the social emotional. So for our students, every student is partnered with a mentor teacher who meets with that student every single day. So every morning, our students will speak to an adult in efforts to build relationships with the student, but as well as with the parents, to address with the student what has happened the night before. Do you have all of the tools you need to be successful for today? We also have in our design for our school, we have put a design to where we have showers built into our bathrooms because we understand some of our students may not have had access to hot water the night before. We have a laundry assigned to one of our wings. We understand some of our students may need access to that. We also have a program to where there will be a small pantry, a school store. Our students were in what we call dream bugs. We understand that some of our students may need to go in there with that artificial, with those dream bugs, and buy hair brushes, or toothpaste, or deodorant. So for us, it's how do we eliminate those barriers that may prevent our students from wanting to be in school? And then once they're there, how do we build relationships with them to where they know that they are in safe, nurturing environments with adults who care about them? And so we look at not only the relationships, but then the academic piece. Part of our pillar is helping our students to identify their talents. Our students have to believe that they can achieve whatever they set their minds to. And so our goal, part of that morning hour, is investing and inspiring with them, helping them to identify what their talents are. All of our kids have innate gifts. Many of our kids don't believe that those gifts can manifest beyond into something. So our goal is, how do we show them that? How do we get them to own that? And so we put things in place to where our kids want to be there. We get an environment to where we move from the traditional worksheet and sit at a desk to where it's collaborative, it's project-based. One of the aspects of our charter is creating an entrepreneurship academy. So our kids take their ideals and they go through a lunch and design process to where our kids can be business owners while they're in school. So it's taking the things that our kids can do, but realizing at the adults, it's our responsibility to meet them where they are versus telling our kids, come to this arbitrary line of where we think you should be.
Well, one of the things I wanted to commend you on, I did a lot of my teaching amongst the middle school children. So I was pleased to read actually where you recognize a sense of urgency for middle school students to explore their passion and interest, and in agreement with Brenda, that has also been something that we talked about, just capturing that passion and that interest. I did have two other questions, if you will. I wanted to give you just another accolade that, and then it'll be followed by a question. The fact that you identify stakeholders in the community who engage actively in the community to get so that you could get an inside look at the community and its needs was impressive. But I want to know, is this something that you will continue to engage in?
Yes.
Okay, and you mentioned...
I'm sorry, did you want us to elaborate or just the yes?
No, yes, it's fine.
Okay, sorry.
You mentioned Teach for America and Teach Alabama. Are you looking for teachers that have specific STEM type skills and backgrounds to work in your teaching positions?
As we go through our recruiting process, because we are a career academy model, we're going to be recruiting those who have experience in the actual workplace in addition to the K-12 experience. So we will be recruiting nurses to work in our health academy, entrepreneurs to work in our entrepreneurship academy, those who have worked in the IT sector to be in our technology academy, as well as those who have worked in mechanic shops to be in our automotive sector. So we understand that that may be a limit through our traditional approach of going to colleges recruiting teachers, going through the the education program, because we're also looking for people with those expertise in order to give our students direct knowledge and understanding of what those career fields look like.
And my last question, I think, I have sticky notes everywhere. My only concern about that is, I know MPS has in the past hired Teach for America teachers, and I know that there's been a lot of turnaround with that, and that instability has also impacted our students as well. So what do you all plan to do to retain teachers that come from these type of programs and reduce that turnaround in the schools?
Our goal is, as we recruit, is first to recruit from within Montgomery City for teachers who have those innovative mindsets, who wants to come and work with our students. Utmost is identifying the best candidate, the best person who understands our philosophy, understands our approach. The teacher who can bring in, who comes with the concept to understand that our kids is about our kids. If you look at our organizational chart, it's flipped from what that traditional model is. Instead of having the board at the top and it goes down to principals and teachers, ours is flipped to where our students are at the center of our organization chart. And typically you don't see that on organization charts. And then it's our teachers. And for us as administrators, we're there, how do we provide support? And so for us, as we recruit teachers, is understanding those who have that same mindset. We understand that with a lot of our approaches, our strategies, it's going to require professional development. It's going to require training. It's going to require me as an administrator to be visible, to be in the rooms, to offer that support. And so our recruitment efforts is going to be a broad range of how do we find the best talent to come to our school. And just like with building relationships with our students, we believe that building relationships with our teachers, building that sense of trust, allowing our teachers to have autonomy to where their creative ideals can unfold. We believe that that will establish a consistent relationship to where our teachers, once they're there, they want to be there. I've always, in my 18 years, I've never gone to work and felt that it was a job, because I've loved what I've done, but I've also worked in schools to where it has felt like, it has felt less like a job, but an environment that was productive and growth for me. And that's the same environment we expect to establish with not only our students, but with our teachers.
And my final question was about your discipline practices. I noticed in here that, of course, you had it leveled and there are different tiers, but and I'm trying to get to it as quickly as I can. Yes, your restorative discipline plan. I know that that's something that the district has also been working on. But I was looking at some of the level of consequences, and I wanted to know, have you, in putting your interventions and responses together, have you all, in the name of restorative justice, have you all reached out to organizations that have helped schools implement true restorative justice policies such as SPLC, ACLU, or OCR? Because some of the practices I did notice could seem a bit punitive to me. And although they are consequences that will be needed, it's not the intent of correcting the behavior, but the impact that it will have on the child that does concern me.
So we have been in contact with other districts. One in particular was the Chicago Public School System. Had the opportunity to collaborate with the restorative justice coach there and just seeing how they were able to implement it, and they have been using it for 13 years and it has been very effective. So we know that when we look at restorative justice, a lot of people think that there's not consequences, but what we like to try to look at is not just having the consequences, but making sure that we have the interventions as well, finding out what is the root of the problem. Oftentimes, we suspend our students and they come back to school and the behavior continues to occur. So we will have a restorative justice coach on campus as well as a counselor, so that when those things occur, that we are able to make sure that our students have an opportunity to speak and work with the restorative justice coach as well as the counselor. Also, we feel that parents are a vital part of this process, so definitely bringing the parents in to see how can we collaborate together, because in the end, we have one goal, and that is to ensure the success of our students. And so whatever we have to do to ensure their success, we want to make sure that we have those things in place at I Dream Big Academy.
And one of the things I want to say with restorative practice, a large piece of it is being proactive. And so for us, yes, we understand students are going to make mistakes. We've been there, and I was like, as you looked at those levels, I perhaps would have been one of those at level 3 or level 4. We make mistakes. But just as with adults, we expect others to give us a chance or to work with us. We feel the same is necessary for our students. But the goal is to help them identify what was the root cause, why did I make that decision? But then it's also being proactive. So every morning, talking to our students, identifying with them. So if we can identify in the morning that a student he's in a poor attitude or there's something bothering him, we can address it right then before we send that child out into the instruction environment to where he's around other students that may trigger an action. So for us, it's building relationships, making sure the mentor is working with and talking with them every day, that our students know that they have caring adults, that if something is bothering them, they can come in safe environments and speak and share what's wrong in order for us to prevent what could possibly happen.
And I said I had one question. I have 2 other questions, and I think I should be done. Special education students in the demographics, and I may have overlooked it, will they also be a part of the demographic of students that you plan to take into that? And is there like a percentage, or is it open to everyone?
Any student who applies, we are not discriminating against any students. Our goal is that we want the at-risk student, because we firmly believe that the students who are at most jeopardy of not graduating, of dropping out, or not being able to obtain jobs once they graduate, those are the students who we want. So students who come to us with IEPs or 504, there's no discrimination. Any of those students who apply, they will follow the same process as well as to be accepted.
And my last question actually is for Mr. Watts. Sorry, Mr. Watts. It's dealing with the finances. One of the fellow board members asked about the financing. In reviewing this application, was there anything concerning or anything that we should be concerned about as it relates to financing and this charter being able to finance itself? Not just this year, but throughout the years, I suppose.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Moore. I did have an opportunity to view the finances. There are also some concerns.
Is it anything we can elaborate on, or something we need to discuss?
I think basically the demonstration of the viability of the financial stability is what we are concerned about.
Okay, then I'm going back to the other charters then. In the past, we were told we wouldn't get one unless all I's are dotted, T's are crossed, that you all vet everything through. So why was this one brought before the board, this application, if that all had not been solidified? Or are you just hoping that we'll go on good faith effort that they...
No, ma'am. Remember I said I have to make a recommendation to accept or deny the application.
Okay, let me, I'm with Erica on this, because when she, I think clarification needs to be made, and she went over and over and over, but it's still Nobody said, this is it. This is, and you know, you're getting texts from out there where the audience doesn't understand it. And what I'm, you know, the law states that what we're here for tonight is an application. If we approve the application, then it is up to them to go do whatever it takes to bring a contract to us, and then we again vote whether we approve it or not. That's, and I know you're shaking your head, but.
The first step is whether or not we accept the application. If we approve the application, then we do a charter contract. If we deny it, then we don't do a contract.
Okay.
Okay?
So it's 2 steps. Okay.
One more thing then, because I want to make sure I'm clear on everything. So we can, Dr. Moore, we can accept or deny the application, even though there are some concerns about financing, and that will be taken care of if it's approved through the contract, or, yeah, help me out.
You are going to get a recommendation to accept or deny. It would be one or the other, not both. So if it's recommended that you approve it, then you move into the contract phase. If it's recommended that you deny it and it's approved, you all agree, the majority, that we deny it, then the applicant can either take it to the commission,
Yeah, I got that.
or
part.
they can reapply next year.
No, I got that part. I guess where I'm stuck at is, for me, and maybe somebody else can maybe clear it up better. I guess where I'm stuck at is if there was issues about financing. Well, let me go back. I guess because they put it, the application was out there. You had to pull it in, look over it, and present it to the board. Is that correct? Okay, that's why I needed to start.
So we have spent several meetings going through some of the same questions that you have tonight and getting whatever answers in return. And so now they get to present to you as a board. And then at some point tonight, I, as superintendent, get to recommend to you whether or not you accept or deny. But it will be one recommendation. Either I'll recommend approval or I'll recommend denial.
Okay.
And
But
you get to vote.
But let me, and I'm putting you on the spot.
That's okay.
And I know you hate for me to do that.
No,
okay?
it's fine. I'm used to it.
You know, we as a board look to you that when you recommend something, you've thoroughly gone over this. You've looked at it.
Correct.
Well, you just explained to us that you had concerns of finance problems, which is what Erica is trying to get across, and I totally feel what Erica's. Tonight I'm on board with Erica. Okay.
I got you.
And I'm gonna say not normally. I'm just saying I'm on board with you. I totally get what you're saying. Why would you, as a superintendent, knowing that there were financial problems, recommend it?
You're missing the point.
Okay. Oh, okay. 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 Okay.
You're missing the point that I'm trying to explain. Okay. There will be a recommendation, and it will be based on our review of the application and any questions or concerns that we are either comfortable or uncomfortable with. And so I have to make a recommendation based on the information.
Look, I
haven't made that yet.
I did hear that. I just had to hear the process.
Okay.
And can I revisit the question regarding finance? Because as we indicated before, we've had 3 meetings with the finance officer, Mr. Watts, regarding our financial feasibility. So this does surprise us that tonight he does address that there are concerns, because we did present a response to every aspect. In comparing our finances to previous charters, we have no large discrepancy. In fact, we have access to, even from the federal level and state, access to more funding than the prior charters have had. Because of our experience in education, we have been able to reach out to entities at the State Department to understand what timeframes, what timelines we need to submit certain reports in order to ensure that we receive additional funding prior to our 2022 school year. So when you look through our 5-year projections, our financial documents, there is financial stability, but at the same time, we assume 100% of the risk of our charter. We're not asking for an existing building. We're not asking for any local revenue from Montgomery County Public Schools. We assume 100% of the risk to bring a charter, to bring an educational opportunity here to the city.
You know, I apologize. You had mentioned that before, and I wrote it down, no local fundings. But that does not refer to the student allocations that come from the state.
Allocations follow the students.
That's what,
yes.
Okay.
And so the students who recruit, we do receive that allocation, but remind the same students, when we look at, there are more students who are leaving the city of Montgomery than our school is taking enrollment for. And so our goal is, how do we keep those students within Montgomery? Because the way that our legislature is designed, our students right now can leave and go to private schools, as well as they're leaving going outside of the city.
Right, right. And that's the reason I wrote it down, and I wanted to revisit it, because we're still looking at money leaving. When we lose students, especially when we're talking about 200 to 400 or 450, maybe up to 500 students, if we lose those, we're going to lose teaching units to go along with that. And I had another question. I was going to just let it go, but there was something in the discipline policy at level 4 with the option to remove the student, you know, maybe after so many suspensions. And yes, in traditional school, we can indefinitely suspend as well. But, you know, not at least under 16, these students need to be in somebody's school somewhere. So if you all were to indefinitely suspend, say a 7th grader, because he had infractions, multiple infractions at level 4, that student is going to have to return to the Montgomery Public School system with no funds. The money stays away. And that was more rhetorical than anything else. That was one of my biggest concerns. So I won't belabor that. I would like to know about our responsibility as a system, not as a board, but as a system. I noticed the responses from MPS staff where, you know, they were able to go back and make some additions, amendments, corrections. What is our responsibility to ensuring that this document is ready? Why would, I think what I'm looking for is similar to the questions about finance a few minutes ago. At some point, do we just say, you know, there are some gaps, and we allow the applicant to make those changes, or is it our responsibility to go through and help fill in the gaps?
So it's our responsibility starting out to vet the application. And we spend a lot of time doing that. And we become very well versed in what the law says about charter schools. And then based upon some of the things we see as we read through the document very thoroughly, and we combine it and look at what the law says, and we look at finances and some of the questions that you've asked tonight, there's a time frame in there where the applicant will get some things. We'll say, you know, it's not quite, we're not quite getting an answer to this question, not necessarily right or wrong, but the answer to a question. And then they do have an opportunity to go back and fill in the gaps for us. Then, as we get back into looking at it again, and the gaps have been filled in by the applicant, then we still look at the feasibility of whether or not a charter applicant is ready at this point to actually start a charter school.
And just so that you all understand, colleagues, the reason I'm asking that question, I'm looking at the man hours that obviously have been invested, and I'm concerned that we have gone 3 or 4 years now. That is not true. I apologize. The last couple of years, we have looked at 3 to 4 charters, and there are so many problems supposedly with the Montgomery Public School System. Those hours could be invested in making sure that we have the programs that we want. What I would like to know, what I would really like to know is where, well, no, I'm sorry. That's not an appropriate question while we're in the for information phase, but just food for thought, and maybe you can tell us later. The schools that have already been approved, we have received no feedback, no updates. What's going on with those programs, you know, as we continue to take in applications and work to approve? So
okay, so let me just give you a little bit of information about that. The State Department made MPS an authorizer. So as an authorizer under the law, you have to put out an RFP every year for applications. That's the law. So it's not that we're doing it just because we want to. The law says if you're an authorizer, you have to do these certain things by this date, and then there's an ending time to where you have to bring it to the board for either the approval or not of the application. So that is something, because we're an authorizer, we have to do that every year. We don't have a choice on that. As long as we're an authorizer, we have to do it. That's a legal piece of it. And then the other question about the others that have been approved and that are going to probably start in the next school year by 22, those are in the process of getting their activities together and their programs together and all of their logistical stuff that they have to do based on the application that they gave us before. They have not started yet, but as we get more into it, we can give you those updates. And remember, one of those schools is a conversion school. That is under our umbrella. Those students stay on our rolls, even though the management part of it is maybe done by another agency. A startup school is a standalone. They are looked upon as an LEA from the State Department, so they are in themselves independent pretty much of MPS, the startup. The conversion students still stay on our roll. They count for us, everything, but that's a conversion model versus a startup model.
Thank you, and I apologize for asking that sidebar question. I would like to know also about the management of your school. You have not, from what I've read, enlisted the support of a for-profit management program. Am I to assume that you as education professionals are the management of your school?
Yes, ma'am. We are not operating under another management company or CMO. Together, we have over 80 years of education experience. We will operate the school according to our experiences.
Do we
Okay, I've waited here, and some of this may be repetitive, but it's either it sounded muffled or I didn't understand. So I'm going to ask it this way. I got my application thing done, but the next for clarification was what was asked up here, and it was why you answered it, but I'm still not understanding why you didn't just go to Pike Road for this? Why Montgomery over Pike Road? Did you, maybe you answered it, but did you ever go to Pike Road Board? And that wasn't clear, that wasn't clarified to me, so I'm asking for clarification.
No, we did not go to the Pike Road school system. The reality is that Pike Road has experienced tremendous growth each year. They are experiencing growth. Unfortunately, students are leaving MPS going to Pike Road. And as I said before, I had students who attended schools here in Montgomery. My goal is, how do we keep the students here in Montgomery? How do we keep students? How do we provide?
But, and that being said, I love vocational. I love your whole idea. I'm very impressed. We've needed one for years. Okay, I can't agree with you more. But what you're saying here isn't the dot isn't connecting for me, is how I can say. What I mean by that is, if you do take our students, the money follows the student. So it is going to Pike Road. You're not saving us any money by it going to Pike Road, which goes back to my original question: why not go to the Pike Road Board? They would need vocational just as much as we would need vocational. I don't understand why you didn't go down that avenue.
I guess I'm not understanding the question as far as the money going to Pike Road. The school building, the building that we are purchasing is here in Montgomery County.
But the money follows the student. It would go to a Pike Road. No?
The school is at Lagoon Park.
Okay. No, but it's still a Pike Road school. So their funds, oh no, okay, all right, okay. So then that's really not a point then. You're not taking any of the MPS money.
It's not a Pike, may I just add a little bit of clarity here? It's not a Pike Road school, nor is it an MPS school.
I got you.
It is an independent
Okay.
startup.
Okay.
Remember
All right.
the difference between startup
Okay,
and
you've answered me. I'm rested. Okay, I feel good about that. Next, okay. Back on your ABC grades. You said you go to an incomplete. So is that true for core courses? If they're failing their math or their English, these cores, if they don't have a 70 average, they're just going to get an incomplete.
So the goal of this is that if a student has a 55 in an algebra course, at the end of that year, that student will receive an F, and they have essentially failed the course, and they have to repeat the course. We know from research that as students repeat grades, especially in the 9th grade, it increases the chances of them dropping out. So our approach is, instead of assigning a 55 for that final grade, that we give the student an incomplete to say, instead of you failing this course completely and having to retake it, you have the 55 numerical grade, but instead of saying an F failure, we give you an incomplete, indicating that you can continue working on that course. So whether it's going into a week within summer, some students, and I've seen in my experience that some students have needed just an additional 2 weeks in order to continue with the course to move up to
Okay.
mastery.
Clarify this then. You also, are y'all block schedule, or what kind of schedule
It's
are
a
y'all?
modified, so it's a block schedule.
It is, because I know what confused me a moment ago is you said, well, some kids can pass a class in 4 months, some it may take longer. So that's where my brain was like, their dots were not connecting again.
And I say that based on the idea of mastery of learning. And so because we focus on the standard for that course, so for an algebra course, we identify here are the standards for that course, and it's mapped out. And so our students, a parent will be able to see from day one everything a student has to learn is supposed to learn for that course. Some of our students may excel and be able to move ahead. That student then can master all of those standards and complete that course
Gotcha.
prior to the allocated time, whereas some other students may need the amount, and some students may need additional time for it.
Okay. Also, I think this was grades 6 through 9?
6 through 12.
Oh, 6 through 12, okay. Then answer this, okay? You had the Health Academy. I pretty much know where your automotive technology and possibly entrepreneurial would go, but dual enrollment-wise, what schools did you consider for your Health Academy? For
the Health Academy, we will partner with Trenum for the medical assisting technology for CNLA, as well as patient care technician. Also within our school, as our CTE teacher teaches the medical courses also, we use as the project Lead the Way curriculum that those students will also be eligible to test for those credentials. So for the patient care technician, they will be prepared in-house as well to sit for those courses. But the dual enrollment course will be attended through Trenum.
Okay. Was Trenum giving you some sort of deal, or was this to gear up, or what?
We've worked with Trenum to identify what programs that we can offer that they can support, as well as the capacity they can support. So yes, Trenum will be able to support our programs as well as the number of students we are sending for those dual.
And that was the only school that you considered was Trenum? Not
because of proximity with us having to drive our kids back and forth to the campus. So yes, Trenum was the only one local as far as like a community school. We have reached out to Southern Union.
There's also South University, which is actually closer, just letting you know, than Trenum. AUM too. Troy.
Right, AUM and Troy, but they do not offer the grant program. So for our students to attend the dual enrollment programs, their parents will have to pay upwards of $200 to $300 a course, versus for them to attend the courses at Trenum. Those courses will be funded through a technical grant, and parents would not have to pay for those courses.
There was a grant. That's what I didn't understand, that there was a grant. Got you. Okay. Then you've answered my questions, and thank you. I think it's a very good program. The funding bothers me a little bit, but I'm, you know.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Thank you for your presentation. We're going to move on to our B, which is the COVID-19 discussion.
Okay, so this was added to the agenda because a number of board members had a desire to have it added to the item. So I'm assuming that at this point, Madam President, there will be some who will want to discuss or make comments.
I see lots of microphones up. Why don't we start at the end of the table down there?
Okay, first I would like to thank you, Superintendent Moore, for the decision that you made on yesterday. I think that made a lot of us more comfortable with moving forward. And the only thing that I would add to that is that I would like for us as a board working with you to come up with a method of communication that would include the employees and the community to keep them abreast as to where we are as it relates to the COVID situation. And we have to be careful, I understand, because of HIPAA and the requirements around that law. But, you know, we are in this together as a team, not just this board, not just the superintendent, but also the teachers, the students, the families, and the community, because all of us are being affected by this pandemic one way or another. And I think the easiest thing for us to do is to come up with a communication plan so that everyone will become more trusting of what is going on in the system. But I thank you for this decision on yesterday, and I totally support you in that.
I would just like to say that I am also in agreement, and it is so important that we show transparency and unity, and that we show support for our teachers, our staff, and our students. And I'm very glad that we are not returning until the vaccine is given out. But I feel that we need to write a letter to the governor and to the chief health officer requesting that they prioritize and optimize access of vaccinations to our MPS employees. When the vaccinations are available, we need to make sure that our employees will efficiently get what they need. We are one of the largest school systems in this state, and we need to have a framework in place so that our teachers, staff, and faculty can be properly vaccinated and that they can return to school safely. So we need to let the governor and the health officer know that our educators need to be taken care of first and move up on the list.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Also, I was very elated yesterday at the press conference, and I too wanted to thank you. Each of you sort of stole my thunder because I too would like for us to communicate with the governor and the Department of Public Health to ensure that our teachers are vaccinated. As a matter of fact, and I know we're not supposed to get into the day-to-day. This is just throwing out an idea. We already have a relationship with Health Services Inc. And we have nurses in our schools who could be easily trained. So if we take advantage of the partnerships and resources that we have, we should be able to have our teachers vaccinated and ready to return to school within the next couple of months. I also would like to applaud Dr. Moore and her willingness to hear the community in this time of crisis, really. This pandemic has consumed our community here in Montgomery. Unfortunately, we've lost employees as a result of it. One of the things that I did want to express in the framework and the planning, and I think I heard it mentioned to include the principals as well, because there's a lot of ambiguity there where principals are not very certain on when to close schools when needed if it is a widespread. So I was glad to hear that should be considered as part of the plan, but most of all, I'd just like to thank Dr. Moore. I know that these decisions are hard because we have to look at so many variables out there, but in my personal opinion, this was the absolute right decision for not only the school district, but for the community.
I'd like to say this for the public to know that the board met this week. We had a conference and we actually discussed some of this. And I want to thank Dr. Moore for what she did. I think she made the right decision as far as what's going on in our community, in our schools, us losing some great teachers. I know this weekend alone, on Saturday, I lost my neighbor, and we lost another past Lee wonderful drama teacher, Buddy Murphy, passed on Saturday morning. I'll be attending both funerals this Thursday. And I think it was a good decision. The thing that I think that we need to know is there is a shot out there. And I heard somebody that is always fairly loud out there say, we've got a phone number. That number is 261-3030. I've called it 5 times, okay? And I've had no return phone calls. So, we have to wait. One of the things that we did get was with our PR person to talk about giving, whether it's bi-weekly or month, we want to be able to communicate through the media, through radio, the positive message, and give you updates as we get them, to show transparency and what's going on with COVID, and we're trying to do the best we can. I think AEA stepped up for you. We've stepped up for you. We're still stepping up for you and doing all we can. So, here we are. Let's work together. This is just as new to us as it is to y'all. Thank you.
I'd like to say, usually I have a lot more to say than I have tonight, but I want to say this. Even the loss of one MPS employee was one too many. My heart breaks, not just for their families, but for our whole MPS family. And I too stand behind Dr. Moore's decision. I think it was the right thing at this time. I think anything we can do, you and me and all of us, to influence the governor and the health officer to to move teachers up. I don't know why in the world teachers weren't considered on the front lines to begin with. But whatever we can do now to influence that, I hope we can try to do that, because it's really important to get our children back in school. They want to be there, teachers want to be there. It's time, and I appreciate what you've done to get us there, and thank the board for their support on all of it. All right, if there's no more discussion on COVID-19, Dr. Moore?
Thank you. I've written down all of your recommendations. Some of them are in the works regarding requesting that we get some vaccines as quickly as possible in a very organized way, so that our teachers and our people who work for us, bus drivers, support people, and everybody, if it's a sporadic kind of scheduling, you know, I call and I go at 8 and somebody else goes at 10, and it's strung out over, say, 2 months of that, then we could have issues in even trying to figure out how we're going to get back in before the end of May. So I think it does have to be done in a very organized fashion, and if we could have an allotted time, a week, 2 weeks, where all of our folks would go, we could send them by schools, so many schools on Monday, so many on Tuesday, whatever. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to incorporate into the suggestions that you made also. But anyway, we'll continue to work on that based on what we've been doing and based on what you're suggesting as well. Okay, are we ready for the action item? Okay, so the board action item, we only have one, and it has to do with the I Dream Big application. So I recommend denial of the I Dream Big charter school application at this time.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? If there is none, all in favor of Dr. Moore's recommendation, please show with a show of hands. Okay, all opposed? Okay. The motion carries. And our next meeting will be Tuesday, February the 9th, and we are adjourned.